I will be meeting with Kim Jong-un in the coming weeks. It would be a tremendous thing for North Korea and a tremendous thing for the world.
He is bringing North Korea closer to behaving like a real country than anyone in our lifetime.
The Department of Homeland Security has released the gang members that were shielded from deportation because of sanctuary policies.
We have illegal aliens just roaming the communities with guns, just shooting everybody up. No one does nothing because they think it won't happen to them. If it's one of their childs or their grandkids, they'll be raising hell.
The city of Houston, Texas, celebrating the life of former First Lady Barbara Bush, lighting up City Hall there on the right in her favorite color ahead of tomorrow's public memorial.
A big surprise for a mom on Long Island, U.S. Airman Eric Benzing, surprising his mother, Regina.
I'm just really proud of him.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Sing it, Shania. Welcome aboard, folks. It is the 19th day of April.
It's the end of April. Where did this month go?
Well, in another 10 days.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the end. I would say it's the middle.
We're more than halfway through.
Right.
Just
it's almost
barely.
August.
And tomorrow, so if today's
Start Christmas shopping.
Today's 4/19, tomorrow's 4/20, the pot day.
Yes, it is.
All right. Hey, this fascinating series of events taking place at the Southern White House, Mar-a-Lago in Florida, where Shinzo Abe, who heads up Japan, who struck up a great relationship with this president, more proof of that, as they had a series of talks, not primarily on trade, but they were also talking about North Korean talks. Why? Because it affects so much with Japan, because it's their security. And their main focus, medium-range missiles and the abduction of Japanese citizens. They do not know what happened. They want to get some answers. And meanwhile, I think they made their point yesterday. But the most fascinating thing to emerge over the last 2 days has been the visit by CIA Director Mike Pompeo to meet face-to-face with Kim Jong-un to see if, in fact, this was worth the president's time. The word is, it's worth the president's time.
Pompeo went, he sat down with him, and he laid the groundwork, which was amazing, phenomenal. I don't think this has ever happened. And so it's just, it's incredible if our president does get this meeting with Kim Jong-un, and then Kim Jong-un denuclearizes his country. It would be phenomenal. The president said this about that meeting.
I will be meeting with Kim Jong-un in the coming weeks to discuss the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Hopefully that meeting will be a great success, and we're looking forward to it. It would be a tremendous thing for North Korea and a tremendous thing for the world. We've never been in a position like this with that regime. If I think that it's a meeting that is not going to be fruitful, we're not going to go. If the meeting, when I'm there, is not fruitful, I will respectfully leave the meeting.
And according to Mr. Pompeo, he told the president apparently that he has set the table, that Mr. Kim Jong-un is ready to go ahead and wheel and deal. To the extent, don't know, but the president made it very clear that if it's not as planned, he's going to hit the exit. Now, here's the thing. Mike Pompeo currently is the CIA director. He's waiting to be confirmed as the Secretary of State. Although we have on this program reminded folks that Rand Paul has made it very clear he's litigating the Iraq War. He does not like the idea of Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State, and so he's a no. However, the president yesterday made it very clear. He said, you know, Rand Paul, he's never let me down. He said he has talked to Mr. Paul, and it sounds like when it's time to vote, Rand Paul probably, if you read between the lines, will be a yes, which means then it would probably still move to the main Senate floor. But the question is, can they get any Democrats to vote with all the Republicans?
Well, when it comes to Senator Rand Paul, he says, I'm going to have the meeting at the president's request, one-on-one. And then what I want Mike Pompeo to do is basically disavow all his beliefs, that there needs to be a presence in the Middle East, that Afghanistan is not done, that he wants him to say the Iraq War was a mistake, and that we shouldn't have a presence there. By the way, Mike Pompeo doesn't believe that. That's the problem. Rand Paul, he's true to his school perhaps, but he's an outlier. And he could single-handedly destroy Mike Pompeo in conference, may go to the main floor, where amongst the Republicans who are on the fence, Senator John McCain just had a surgery, won't be there, and Senator Jeff Flake says, beats me, I'm not sure how I'll vote.
Well, Senator Cory Gardner, he's a Republican from Colorado. He said there's really no good reason to vote against Mike Pompeo. Listen to this.
I think the Senate historian has said, going back to at least 1925, this has never happened for a Secretary of State nominee. It's happened in other nominations, but you don't want this to happen. That's clear. There really is no good reason to vote against Mike Pompeo. I think we can work with Rand Paul. I hope that, that those conversations continue to gain his support, but there really is no reason by the Democrats who voted for Mike Pompeo to be CIA director to oppose his nomination for Secretary of State other than blind and absurd partisanship.
It's blind and absolutely. The growing opposition from the Democrats suggests that the Democrats do not want the president to have anybody on his national security team who is in lockstep with the president. But you look historically, we've never seen this kind of thing regarding a Secretary of State. For instance, on George W. Bush's first Secretary of State, Colin Powell, was confirmed by unanimous voice consent. Hillary Clinton, when she ran for Secretary of State, her confirmation, only 2 no votes. John Kerry got 3. Are you telling me every single Democrat is going to say, nope, not going to give the president the guy he wants? That would be historic.
The pressure on these Democrats in Republican states will be strong. Joe Manchin is really going to vote against a guy so qualified, #1 at West Point, a star at Harvard. You're going to tell me John Tester is really going to say to the people of Montana, I vote with the president a lot, you can trust me, and not vote for this Secretary of State? By the way, the harder vote was Tillerson, a guy who came out of business, got an award from Vladimir Putin. That was a tougher vote. This should be a layup. He's already proven himself in a very respected CIA director who has the president's respect because he briefs him every day. What is extraordinary is I don't want him agreeing with the president too much.
Right.
How dare they? What are they? What are they? The supervisor of the president?
They're together on the same page. Keep in mind, the Senate has already confirmed Mike Pompeo once, and the vote was 66 to 32. Why would it be any different this time?
If he's good enough to run the CIA, wouldn't he be good enough for this position as well?
Hello.
All right, another news. The president is heading to Key West. You know, he's down in Mar-a-Lago, so he's going to head down to Key West to go to this anti-smuggling center. And in the meantime, yesterday, California's Governor Jerry Brown said that he will deploy those 400 National Guardsmen all over the state, but there are conditions. He says they will not enforce immigration laws, and they will not help construct a wall.
That's right.
Yeah, what a joke this is. Here's the quote. California's National Guard service members shall not engage in any direct law enforcement role nor enforce immigration laws. So that's the key. Arrest people for immigration law violations like getting here illegally, guard people taken into custody for alleged immigration violations, or support immigration law enforcement activities. What are they going to do, the laundry? I mean, what are they bothering for? That's what the federal government's paying for, to show up in camouflage and not doing anything?
Well, but that's not the intent. That's not why the president ordered them up. So if I was, you know, I'm sure people are going, well, Mr. President, you're going to fund 400 National Guardsmen in the great state of California if they're not going to do what you want them to do? It seems like a no-brainer. It seems like, you know, Jerry Brown is just finding busy work for them. Meanwhile, Jamil Shaw Sr., he's been on this program a number of times. He lost his son to somebody who was in this country illegally. He was on about a half an hour ago talking to us about a message for Jerry Brown. We asked him if he had one, and he did, and boy, was it powerful.
Every person who's died is your fault. You, Kevin DeLeon, all you left-wing nuts, legal alien lovers who don't care about our family. We go to the cemetery to see our family. We have pictures. We kiss pictures. What do? If your grandchild or your daughter's child or anybody like that you know, what would you do, Jerry Brown? So all we have is memories or what could have been. And then he's here to protect us. You're not here for illegal aliens. We put you in office, and you're here to protect us.
Boy.
That is so powerful. That poor man, he spends every holiday without his child.
Every day.
Because there was an illegal immigrant that was here and killed his son. And this guy had a long rap sheet, too.
Right. This guy should not have been in the country. And the Department of Homeland Security has just released some startling numbers of forget about the criminals who have been released, but the number of criminal aliens who were members of gangs has just come out, and I know the numbers are kind of hard to see, but look at California. They released 89 gang members into society without calling ICE. And you got Maryland 13, the state of Texas, I think, is 11, and along with
Is Austin's a sanctuary city?
Probably. And then New York here, where we are, 4, and the list goes on and on. It's just extraordinary, the number of states that are not cooperating with the federal government.
Political geniuses out there. If you're a Democrat, most of the American people want the border reinforced, and most people want their immigration laws reinforced. The numbers are strong. So even if you want to play politics, you're playing it wrong. Number two is he says, Governor Brown came out and said, listen, you guys are playing with numbers and you act like all criminals are illegal immigrants. It's not the point. We know there's people here in this country who are horrible people who commit crimes and are waiting to go to jail and should. But it's like saying because there are traffic accidents, it's okay to drink and drive and have a traffic accidents. Traffic accidents are unavoidable. People die. I get that. But if you drink and drive or use any type of drugs and drive, that, of course, is breaking the law and the chances are higher. Why would you allow that? You don't. So why would you allow illegal criminals to stay here? You shouldn't. And that's my point to Governor Brown.
2/3 released of these gang members released occurred in California, Governor Brown. 15 of these are in MS-13 gangs, known for those gruesome crimes. Brian, in your neck of the woods, where MS-13 lives, you did that story with those 2 families. Those were the same families that were invited to the State of the Union address. Those moms, when you hear their stories of what their daughters went through, they were young girls, high school members. The police couldn't even identify these young girls. That's how gruesome their murders were.
All they've got to do is cooperate with the feds, which happens all across the country, except in certain spots, and that's what's so frustrating.
We just want our country to be safe.
All right, here's Jillian. If she cooperates, she'll be reading the news, but you could choose not to.
I may not want to.
Would you, as a
probably
favor?
should.
Okay. The show would grind to a halt.
We don't want that to happen. Good morning to you. Let's get you caught up on some of the other stories that we're following. Starting here, just one day after that nightmare explosion on a Southwest plane, the engine of a Delta jet catches fire. Check it out. You can see the thick black smoke coming out from under the wing, forcing the plane heading from Atlanta to London to turn back.
Issue with the engine on the right-hand side. Apparently there's some smoke coming from it.
Firefighters sprang the plane down with foam on the tarmac. No one was hurt and passengers were put on another flight. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Let's take you to Houston right now on a live look where the city is celebrating the life of former First Lady Barbara Bush. City Hall lighting up in her favorite color. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner inviting the public to a celebration of life on the steps of City Hall tonight. There will be prayers for the former First Lady, remarks by special guests, and a performance by the Houston Children's Chorus. Adam Helsley will have more on the final goodbyes to the First Lady in just a few minutes. Let's look at your headlines, so make sure you stay tuned for that.
All right, Jillian, thanks.
The picture of all the First Ladies. That's
Yep, and the Nixons. 12 minutes after the hour.
Brand new concerns this morning about bias in the Clinton email investigation at the federal level. And Congressman Mark Meadows in North Carolina has had enough. What he is doing about it when he joins Brian live next.
And Dave Bossie will be here. I like him so much better than Corey Lewandowski, but they wrote the book together.
I was born country, and that's what I'll always be. Like the rivers and the woodlands, wild and free.
This morning, new concerns about the extent of FBI coordination and DOJ coordination and potential bias tied to the Clinton probe in 2016. Our next guest demanding a deeper look at texts sent by anti-Trump FBI agents, believe it or not, still on the job, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Joining us now, the guy from the Freedom Caucus we all know as Mark Meadows. He's at the Oversight Committee. Your staff yesterday got more information on this that leads you to the conclusion so far that there was coordination between Loretta Lynch's DOJ and the FBI. How do you know?
Well, I mean, we know because we have a number of documents, a growing body of evidence, Brian, that now would suggest that Director Comey, who under sworn testimony a number of times have said there was no coordination between Loretta Lynch's DOJ and our FBI investigation. Not only was that false, but we know that over and over again now, we have emails that would suggest that that testimony was false and at best misled the American public, at worst was lying to Congress. And here we are today with emails, text messages that says that even the no coordination message that Director Comey put out on that infamous day in July was actually suggested by the Department of Justice.
Here's the text. Timing looks like hell, Peter Strzok says to Lisa Page, will appear choreographed. All major news networks literally leading with the AG to accept the FBI director's recommendation. Yeah, this is awful. Nothing we can do about it. I mean, this is like a third-rate movie playing out on text messages. These people are supposed to be guarding our secrets and seeking truth and justice. They don't even know how to secure their own texts.
Well, it's interesting that they would go back and forth saying that the timing looks awful, but there's even another email from the Department of Justice that would indicate that on how to articulate the exoneration of Hillary Clinton. And so as you go further from another source other than Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, within the Department of Justice, we now know that the edits, that they had given edits to Director Comey, or at least the emails would suggest that. And so as we're looking at this, we got Director Comey out there saying, well, I was a Boy Scout, I was above reproach. Now we have evidence that would suggest that that's not accurate, so we have to look at it further.
Also, keep in mind, you might have some help. It looks like McCabe and Comey are turning on each other. The deputy and the former director, one fired, but they're actually both fired. I think you might get the truth out of their testimony.
Well, as it goes back and forth, you see that there's each one saying that the other one was not telling the truth. Now what we have is beyond just the two of them, though, is other people within the FBI and DOJ who know that the testimony that Director Comey gave before Congress was not entirely the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And so as we look at that, there's also additional evidence that would suggest that DOJ narrowed the scope of the Hillary investigation to make sure that she was exonerated.
Mark Meadows, thanks for joining us. Keep that staff working because we need to get the facts. Appreciate it.
Be glad to. Thanks so much, Brian.
All right. Meanwhile, we're learning more about the passengers who tried to save a woman's life on that Southwest flight. A retired nurse who performed CPR for 20 minutes joins us live with her story. Syrian chemical facilities.
Benjamin Hall joins us live near the Syrian border with a first-hand look at the gas attack in Douma and attempts to cover it all up. Benjamin?
Yeah, hi, Brian and Ainsley. You know, we've been speaking to people over the last couple of days who were caught up in this attack, people who have had to flee and people who are still in the affected areas. And they tell us that there is this concerted attempt to hide exactly what happened. Well, today the OPCW was still trying to get to the scene of that chemical attack. They had to leave their hotel about an hour ago, but they were unable to get there yesterday because of security concerns. They say that they were fired upon. However, we've spoken to sources on the ground who say this simply isn't true. Rebels were not in the area. They were bussed out about 10 days ago. Well, today General Mattis also pointed his finger at the Syrian regime. He said that they've done this in the past, they try to hide the evidence like this, and they're doing it again. But evidence is getting out. Bit by bit, we're able to paint a picture of what exactly happened in that terrible chemical attack in Douma. We can't get to the site ourselves, but every day, evidence and witnesses come across this border wall with more horrific details. We met up with the survivor of the chemical attack.
One had broken the roof and was stuck. Everybody in that house and at least 2 other houses had died. The barrel was about 5 feet long, yellow and made of thick metal. Doctors said they only had room to treat those who had a chance of survival. They left the others to die.
But despite the Syrian regime's attempt to prevent evidence getting out, we know that Americans have been into northern Syria. They have taken urine and blood samples from those affected. So we do know that the American government now has evidence. Whether or not the UN can get it today, we will wait and see. Back to you guys.
Of course, that's when we first met Benjamin. That's when he was on the ground with ISIS. Not fighting with ISIS, reporting on him. Thanks, Benjamin Hall.
Thanks,
26 minutes after the hour. Here's Steve.
Thank you, Brian. A nightmare at 30,000 feet. A Southwest jet. The engine blew mid-flight, killing one person. But now we're learning more about the other passengers who jumped into action to try to save that woman's life. That is Jennifer Reardon. She died in it. One of those tried to help her. our next guest, who performed CPR for more than 20 minutes. Retired registered school nurse Peggy Phillips joins us right now from Dallas. Peggy, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's go back a couple of days when this all happened. As soon as it blew, what did you feel?
There was a very loud noise, and the plane started vibrating and shuddering, and it was very, very loud. And the oxygen masks drop out of the compartment, and I think everyone knew that something really bad had happened. We weren't sure exactly what at that time. The plane started depressurizing and basically going down. I mean,
Sure.
it was definitely losing altitude. But, you know, interestingly enough, the passengers were very calm for the most part.
Right.
And my feeling was, initial feeling was, well, okay, I don't have any control over this situation. This is definitely not in my hands.
Right.
I had a real sense of calm about me, which, looking back, surprises me. But that's just how it was.
Yeah.
I wasn't panicked. I wasn't hysterical. I truly believe that if it was meant for us to
Sure.
land safely, we would. And if it wasn't, that was just how it's going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, you're just trusting the pilot, who, as it turns out, was a great hero. Tammy Jo Schultz, a naval aviator, was steering the plane. The reason you were in a dive was because she was trying to get down to the lower altitude, so that because you needed the oxygen. And that's a picture of the pilot. But we just showed the window right there. That sitting at that seat was Jennifer Reardon. I know at one point they asked, is there anybody here who is an EMT? And there was a firefighter and an EMT in her row, apparently. But then you got up. Why?
Actually, the EMT was not in her row. He was sitting on the other side of the plane, slightly in front of me, several rows in front of me. And he went back immediately when he discovered that, you know, there was something going on behind us.
Right.
I stayed in my seat and turned around to kind of see what was happening, but there was a lot of activity back there.
Sure.
And about 2 seconds after that, they said, "Does anyone know CPR?" I took off my mask, I took off my seatbelt, and I went to help Andrew, who was the EMT.
All right.
And we did CPR for well, until the plane landed.
Yeah. I know there have been a lot of stories about what had happened to this woman, and I know you don't want to get too graphic. So how would you describe the condition you found her in?
I didn't know at the time that the window had blown, so I did not know what I was going to see when I walked back there. I will say that her injuries were substantial. There was a lot of trauma to her head and her neck and her upper torso. And that's already come out, I believe, from the coroner. But, you know, I didn't know. And so, you know, you just, at that point, you don't think about it anymore. You look at it, you assess the scene. And Andrew was already giving compressions, and I told him that I was a registered nurse and that I would assist him, and we traded out. I attempted to establish an airway. I didn't feel like I ever got an airway established very well. There was no pulse.
Right.
And but we continued to exchange positions to give compressions.
Sure. I've heard accounts that apparently the only thing that kept the woman in the plane was the fact that her seatbelt was still on, and that's why you were able to then try to save her life, but it doesn't sound like that was a possibility given her extensive injuries. But what is it about a person? Okay, so Peggy, I know you felt when you were going down that this was it. This could be it. The masks are going down. This could be it. And yet, when you heard them say, anybody know a CPR, you took your mask off and you went back to help. Where does that come from?
That comes from being a registered nurse for over 20 years, and that's just what we do. That's just in our, it's just part of who we are. You know that anytime you step on a plane, anytime you're out in public, anything can happen at any given time, and it's almost like you're always on call in your mind, you know, and you're always going to be ready to step in and lend assistance, and that's just what medical personnel do. RNs do that on a daily basis. And you just, I was almost relieved to have something to do that I knew I was in control of. I know how to do CPR. I can help.
Sure.
And that was a good feeling for me to know that I could at least attempt to help.
Yeah, well, you know, they were lucky to have you on the plane. Peggy Phillips, thank you very much for joining us and telling us your story.
You are very welcome. Thank you.
We have a live look from Houston, the city that is celebrating the life of our former First Lady, Barbara Bush, lighting up City Hall, as you can see, in her favorite color of blue ahead of tomorrow's public memorial.
Well, we now know First Lady Melania Trump will go. The Obamas will go. The Clintons will go. And they'll attend the former First Lady's funeral. That'll be on Saturday.
Adam Housley is live outside the funeral home in Houston with the very latest. Adam?
Yeah, and we've heard from all those distinguished guests in the last couple of days about Barbara Bush and what she meant to them. And here in Houston, as you showed, the pictures of the City Hall lighting up in blue, her favorite color. Tonight there's a candlelight vigil, and also right now there are flowers being laid and have been laid there for the last 24 hours in memoriam of the former First Lady at the Houston City Hall. As you can see, people there paying their last respects. Tomorrow she lies in repose at a church just down the street from here, and that's when the public mourning process and celebration as well of her life will begin, with the ability to see her lie in repose if you care to do so. We're also hearing more from her family, including this soundbite from one of her children about their mother, their beloved mother of 92 years. Take a listen.
My mother was at peace for what took place. She believes in an afterlife, and was joyously looking forward to that afterlife.
And we keep hearing those same comments from George W., from the entire family and friends who knew her very well that talked to her in the last couple of weeks, that she was prepared for this and she did her life on her terms from the very beginning to the very end, guys. Going home, being with her family, and deciding to live her last few moments at home with her beloved George H.W. Bush. Back to you guys in New York.
All right, Adam, thank you very much. Live report from Houston. By the way, Fox News Channel will have live coverage on Saturday from Houston.
And that was, thanks, Adam. Meanwhile, that was the man just checking his iPhone, was the co-author of Let Trump Be Trump, David Bossie, former campaign manager with this guy.
Who wrote it with Corey Lewandowski, and Brian said earlier you were his favorite.
And Corey's already responded.
You know, the truth hurts sometimes. Sorry, Corey.
I have to expose my feeling. I have not yet made a decision, but I'm leaning towards Bossie.
Thank you.
First off, on Robert Mueller investigation, the president made it clear yesterday those two gentlemen are still in charge for the last 7 months. For the last 7 months, people have been telling me that I'm going to fire them, but listen.
There was no collusion with Russia other than by the Democrats. This was really a hoax created largely by the Democrats as a way of softening the blow of a loss. You look at the fact that their server, the DNC server, was never gotten by the FBI. Why did the FBI take it? The FBI takes what they want. They go in, they wouldn't get the server. As far as the investigation, nobody has ever been more transparent than I have instructed our lawyers. Be totally transparent. As far as the two gentlemen you told me about, they've been saying I'm going to get rid of them for the last 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and they're still here.
They're still here.
He's not going to fire Mueller. He's not going to fire Rosenstein. He's not going to fire Mueller. He's not going to fire Rosenstein. Look, we continuously have this conversation. I don't know how many times we've had to have it. The left continues this mantra because that's all they have. They have no agenda for America or for the American people. They don't have a solution to our economy, our national security problems. They only want to attack this president who has done an incredible job over the last 15 months.
They would love to fire Mueller, or for him
right,
to
they want
fire
him to do it.
They want
and
that narrative.
They're trying to goad him, and all they want to do is create this narrative across the country, which is false, a false narrative. That's all they have is lies. just to be able to spread.
David, the president brought up something good. Why didn't the FBI go in and get the server?
Of course.
Because Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, no, you can't have it. I don't remember any, Mr. Cohen, can I have those records? Well, he did.
Pretty please.
He said he was cooperating, but they wound up raiding that place and the other lawyer.
From an outsider's point of view, the way the FBI and the way the DOJ treated Hillary Clinton in that investigation of the emails and all of that.
Well, with the DNC, it wasn't criminal behavior. It was, hey, you've been hacked.
Right.
You should do something about it.
It's espionage.
But it wasn't something they did criminally. It wasn't something the Democrats did.
But the American people understand the way Hillary Clinton was treated, the way she was interviewed, the way her people were interviewed together, not under
with
oath,
immunity.
with an immunity deal amongst them. It's versus how President Trump and his team are being treated. The American people see what's going on. They see what has happened.
The Wall Street Journal today has a column from Jay Goldberg. He talked to the president on Friday, told the president Michael Cohen's going to flip, and you should be much more fearful of what Cohen's got than what Mueller has. He's his attorney that handled his 2 divorces.
Right, and I know who he is. I don't know him, but I know who he is. And I think that was a very strong statement from him to say, and I think he went on further to say, don't meet with Mueller, don't give them an interview. I think every lawyer has a different opinion on what the president should or shouldn't be doing. The one thing that is true is what the president said. He's been transparent. He has had all of his people and his legal team cooperate with this investigation to try to get the Russian collusion hoax, which is what it is, behind us. Because as a nation, it's best if we do that. Look, the world is in a dangerous place. And I'm sick and tired of the Democrat Party using our foreign policy with the Russians as a political lever. And that's what they've done. That's all they have.
What about Hillary Clinton, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Lynch? Are they in criminal trouble?
I think that some of those folks definitely are going to be looking. We'll see what the IG report says, I guess, in a few weeks. And if there is a continuation of an investigation or referrals in that IG report, I think that's going to be the next big shoe to drop.
All right.
Thanks, David.
David Bossie, the bossiest guy on the couch.
Let Trump be Trump, he says.
Thank you.
All right, David and others, Starbucks is going to close thousands of stores and give thousands of workers racial sensitivity training, all in response to that controversial arrest video. But Kevin Jackson says it's not worth it. He's here to explain why, coming up next.
Plus, Governor Jerry Brown agrees to send guard troops to the border, but to not enforce immigration laws. Acting Deputy Commissioner for Customs and Border Protection, Ron Vitillo, responds next hour.
Starbucks under fire after this arrest of 2 men, black men, in Philadelphia at one of their stores last week.
The coffee giant now announcing a bold move. It's going to close more than 8,000 stores on May 29th and risk losing millions of dollars to train their employees on racial sensitivity. But will it pay off?
Join us right now to discuss. We've got the CEO of the Black Sphere and Fox News contributor Kevin Jackson joins us today from Phoenix. Kevin, let's start at the beginning. Why did the manager call the police at that store in Philadelphia?
Who knows, Steve? I mean, do we really know all the details around that? I keep coming back to businesses can do what they want. There are many places that say no shirt, no shoes, no service, or we reserve the right to refuse service to whomever. So were these guys right or were they wrong? I don't know. But what I do know is this. This was an isolated incident. Starbucks has 8,000 stores, 175,000 employees, and this is a single incident that probably should have been encapsulated in that single incident. I was saying to the producer earlier, if these are 2 white guys, I'm not sitting here and we're not having this discussion. But now, because Starbucks and we live in this cult of social justice warrior, they have to face something that, quite frankly, is ridiculous and is a cancer on capitalism in America.
Why is it ridiculous?
It's ridiculous because if any single employee can trigger a corporation to have to spend millions of dollars, we're talking about, we did an estimate, it's going to be at least $20 million to give this free day to employees so they can go through millions of dollars of social justice training, sensitivity training that the overwhelming majority of these people don't need. If you live in America, you're desensitized to race issues, gender issues, and religious issues, and all these other issues that people like Howard Schultz and Kevin Johnson want to make believe happen routinely. Starbucks is, and by the way, I'm no defender of Starbucks. I can't stand the company. I think I wouldn't invest a nickel in them. But the idea that their CEOs believe, former CEO and present CEO believe that they have this pervasive attitude of some, anti-black, anti-whatever, racism against blacks is ridiculous. In Philadelphia, that's a city that's overwhelmingly black, that anybody looking at Starbucks and say, how many other blacks are there in the store? How many people, how many blacks go to Starbucks daily? I go, even though I don't necessarily like it. I've never been mistreated, and many other blacks go to Starbucks and aren't mistreated. So we have a single isolated incident that never should have seen the light of day that gets national attention. So think about what any corporation faces if one employee happens to do something wrong.
So why do you think Starbucks is doing this? They are losing a lot of money.
I think Starbucks has just, they believe they got the muscle memory of the Barack Obama era where everything is an overreaction to something racial. And so they believe this is going to help their stock. They think they're being good corporate citizens. Starbucks' job is to sell coffee. But somewhere along the line, Howard Schultz believed that his job was to protect black people. I would say to Howard Schultz and to Kevin Johnson, black people have done a great job of protecting ourselves. We're more than capable of doing this, and America is ready to move beyond this.
Well, it does sound as if Eric Holder, former Attorney General, is going to help with the training that day. Kevin Jackson, we thank you very much for joining us today from Phoenix to weigh in on
No
this.
justice, no coffee, Steve.
There you go. All
Thanks,
right.
Kevin.
All right, straight ahead.
It is the end of an era. For the first time in nearly 60 years, Cuba will no longer be ruled by a Castro. But our next guest, a Cuban-American, says it's no time for celebration. Plus, Dana Lash is going to join us live in the next hour.
On the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living.
Years, Cuba will no longer be led by a Castro. Raul Castro is planning to step down as president later today, with his current vice president taking over. So what does this mean for future relations with our country? Maria Elvira Salazar is a Republican congressional candidate for Florida's 27th district and is a Cuban American, and she joins us now with some insight. Good morning to you, Maria. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So what do you think about this news, and what do you know about the vice president that will now become the president?
Well, it's just basically a transfer of title, not a transfer of power. We have to remember that the Castro brothers are in the business of keeping political power, and they are not going to share any market share with anybody. So basically, Diaz-Canel, 57-year-old, somebody that is very much unknown for the 12 million Cubans. Not everybody really knows him. He is just an emperor with no clothes. Is just a figurehead, because the power in Cuba remains in the hands of the Communist Party. And the hair and the chair and the person that is heading, or the leader of the Communist Party, is still Raul. So Diaz-Canel is just a figurehead, is just a puppet of the Castros.
Tell me about your family. What is your story?
Well, my story is that I was born in first-generation American, so we really appreciate the system and the freedoms of this country. My parents are political refugees, so I was born and I grew up. I was raised feeling the pain of not having democracy and freedom. You know, there is no exception. Cubans want liberty just like the other 27 countries in this hemisphere, just like everybody else. We want freedom, liberty. We want to have free elections. Who elected this guy? No one. So it's an embarrassment right now that the world media is touting or is saying that today is a new day for the Cuban government because no one named Castro is at the helm. Baloney! The Castros are still there, and the political apparatus and the repressive apparatus is still intact. So, you know, where are the elections? So in reality, we have to keep on fighting for the Cubans to be free. And today is not that day. Today, there's nothing to celebrate.
Maria, what has America done for you?
oh, America, my God, this is the best country in the world. That's why everybody wants to come here, because America offers you the opportunity of be somebody, of be able to grow and to raise your family in freedom and liberty, to have political elections and to have a freedom in the elections, which is what I always say. We have to love and preserve the system, the American system, because it may not be perfect, but I assure you that it's still the best that we have in the world. And that's why we have the immigration problem we have, because everybody wants to come here, because here you are really a person. What do you have, you know, I live in Miami, you know, we're in Miami. You know how many millions of Cubans are here that have been able to defy the sharks in the middle of the ocean, just wanting to come here? So in reality, Cuba remains the North Korea of the hemisphere, and we have to keep on fighting to find some freedom.
You know what's great about your story?
I have thanks to my parents.
Yeah, your parents came over here, had probably, I don't know if they've had ever been to America, but you were born in America and now you're running for Congress. Congratulations. Proud of you.
Well, that's what this system and this country gives you. The opportunity to be the daughter of very poor political refugees and now be able to represent my people in the U.S. Congress.
That's right.
Could you imagine what that means? The glory. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Maria Elvira Salazar, we appreciate it. God bless you. Thanks. California Governor Jerry Brown agrees to send National Guard troops to the border, but not to enforce immigration laws. Acting Deputy Commissioner for Customs and Border Protection, Ron Vitello, he's going to respond in the next hour. Plus, Dana Lash and Bob Massey are going to join us live.
I did